Turn that on when I'm speaking. Okay. Oh, but I have to join though.
Wonder why you're not joined.
It says join with video, so maybe I should do that.
Who's live streaming?
It's a mystery. Who's live streaming? Do you know who it is? It's on Southgate. And I'm not going to turn on with computer audio, right?
No, you're using the microphone.
Oh, I am. So I don't,
You turn your audio on.
so I should not do that.
Correct.
Yeah, only on video.
Yeah, exactly. Only on video. Taking for a long time, man.
Oh, okay. Hi. Yeah, this is Josh.
Sarah Lawrence. And Bailey will be absent. And I'm not for the phone. Okay. He gets. Yeah. We're saying hi, Renee, and leaving the block first. Everybody. Okay, it's 5:30, so I'm going to go ahead and call this Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency Board meeting for May 17th, 2022 to order. Paula, will you please call the roll?
Diana Bailey is absent. Stacy Coburn.
Present.
Tracy Dujek.
Present.
Lindsay Tomei.
Present.
Darcy Long.
Present.
And McLaughlin is absent. Dan Richardson.
Present.
Dennis Aldebar. Present. And Kathy Schwartz.
Present. Thank you. Would you all please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first order of business is to approve the agenda. Are there any changes? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda. To approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Tracy, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next order of business is to approve the minutes from April 19th, 2022. Did anyone have any changes? Okay, seeing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Tracy. A second,
I'll second that.
and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. At this point, we're going to open the meeting to public comment. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject that does not appear later on the agenda. 5 minutes per person will be allowed. Do we have any public comment either in the room or on the live stream? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to staff comments and project updates. Director Cannon?
Chair and members of the board, nice to see you this evening. I wanted to give you a few updates on projects. So I got some good news yesterday on the Tony's building. As you remember from last meeting, you authorized me to sign an application on our behalf for a grant for the Oregon Brownfield Cleanup Fund. And I think I had told you that we had a lot of strong support for that project. I was told that the Oregon Brownfield Cleanup Fund, Business Oregon, received about $4 million awarded from the EPA, and we will get a chunk of that. So it isn't final yet, but we'll get at least $250,000 and maybe more. So I'll know more in a couple of weeks as to what the combination of grants and loans. We will get a grant package that's combined with some loans, a low interest loan. I think I told you that in our budget, we have funding for the full amount, but there may be a leveraging reason why it might make sense to do a no interest loan for the first year and then pay it off. So stay tuned, but I was really hopeful about that. I'm hoping that we can continue with the schedule to have an RFP out on the street so that we can get this thing demolished in the fall. So stay tuned as we proceed through this. I'll keep you posted. On the rec building, I've been talking to Mr. Carpenter, who's on the screen here, and with the director at the chamber about having a ribbon cutting opportunity for the rec building with all of you in June. And so I still need to work with the chamber to get that scheduled, but I think they have a twice a month opportunity on the is it Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon? Thursday morning. So stay tuned on that one as well. But of course, I think it's going to be, I don't know if we have Counselor or Chair Long and Mr. Carpenter sharing the ribbon or the huge scissors. I'm not sure, but in any event, we're looking forward to having some recognition for that. The First Street project, I haven't talked very publicly about this, and I don't have a lot of detail to provide. We're hitting some bumps on First Street in our partnership with ODOT. We have a good, strong relationship with ODOT. We have been told, however, that due to some bureaucracy and process that we may, our construction project, if we continue to team with ODOT, our construction may be delayed a couple more years. And so my project manager, who's a consultant for us, is we're going to be evaluating the cost of maybe not partnering with ODOT. And I'll need to work that through with the city manager and also talk to you all about what are the costs associated with that. The only reason it would make sense to part ways with ODOT is if we can do it sooner, more efficiently, and then also cheaper with less cost. And so I expect both will be true, and that I'll be coming back to you asking if we can go it alone. So there will be some implications with that, but I want to have my eyes wide open about what the pros and cons are with all of you. So I would say this information is semi-public. I mean, it's public because I'm sharing it at a meeting, but I don't have any details to back up what I just shared. I'll have those in the coming weeks. And I just wanted you to know why I'm not giving more of an update on that project. And then, of course, the other big project is our incentive program, and that'll be a subject of tonight's discussion. So I think those are all the updates I have for now, unless I missed something that you have a question about.
Great. It's nice to have those details and a heads up. So this is the time for board member comments and questions. Do you have any on what Alice just shared or anything else? Kathy?
Yeah, hi. Alice, I had a community member talk to me recently about perceived concern that the First Street project isn't really aligned with the Second Street project, that it was different, and questioning why it wasn't in sync with what's already been done. And I couldn't really answer that. And the other question I had is, are we in communication, collaboration with the Dallas Beautification Committee as well? Because I know they're doing some things, we're doing some things, and I was wondering if if you are a conduit, perhaps, or Darcy. So those are my two questions.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I've been to the Beautification Committee, I think 3 times in the past few months about this project. One area where they had some comments, and it's a good comment. My predecessor, I learned, removed any irrigation from the trees, the tree wells. And I got a question about that from the Beautification Committee. And when I answered, it's really not a very satisfactory answer as far as I'm concerned. We haven't had a lot of success with those trees on 2nd Street. So we will be adding irrigation back into the project. And it's so the answer is yes, that issue has been answered. Yes, we have proposed some different pavers for the street that don't match the ones on 2nd Street. The purpose for that is the ones on 2nd haven't aged very well. They've gotten faded pretty quickly. So we want to have something that is more like the pavers that are near the cruise ship terminal and then are along Court Street that goes down. There's a nice, very nice street frontage in front of Lewis and Clark Park that better matches up with what First Street might look like in the future. So it isn't a perfect match, but the purpose is to have more resilient trees and have it a design that will be more sustainable over the long term. I am open to continuing conversations with this person that reached out to you, but also with the Beautification Committee about all these things.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
That's an excellent question, Kathy. And I think I talked sort of privately, and I should have brought it up here with Director Cannon about intentionally involving the Beautification Committee and inviting them to come and sort of giving them a heads up when there's things that might be coordinated. And then of course, they'll be letting us know if they're working on a project that would coordinate with us as well. Anyone else?
We have a new city manager. I just wanted to say that, and he is not in the audience. I think he might be in the building though, so he might slip in the back, but it's been a true pleasure to have him. And we just met for a couple hours this afternoon talking about urban renewal and all the great projects.
You look like you're on the edge of your seat. Are you? Okay, I'm just checking. Just checking if I blew past you. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to the public hearing for our budget. This is a public hearing for the adoption of the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget for the Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency. This is the time scheduled for a public hearing to receive testimony concerning the proposed adoption of a budget for the 2022-2023 fiscal year for the Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency, making allocations and certifying a request for maximum tax revenue to the county assessor. First, a staff report will be presented. Following the staff report, I will ask board members if they have any questions and open the public hearing. I will then ask those persons who wish to present testimony concerning the proposed budget to come to the microphone, state their name and address, and present their testimony. All speakers are requested to be specific in their presentations and to focus their remarks upon the relevant issues raised by the proposed budget for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Chair and members of,
To open the public hearing, Ashley formally.
Oh, I thought reading that was opening the hearing. Okay, so I'm opening the public hearing and asking for the staff report.
Chair and members of the board, thank you. This budget, the proposed budget, was presented to this board and several members of the budget committee, all the members of budget committee on April 12th, and no changes came out of that. We did have quite a bit of discussion about different line items, but it came back with no comments. So we are recommending the budget as proposed in the packet. Let's see. So I'm going to move quickly. This is open to public comment, of course, but I am going to go ahead and recommend that you move to adopt the resolution 22-001 for fiscal year 22-23 budget for the Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency, making allocations and certifying a request for maximum tax revenue to the county assessor.
Okay, at this time, I would solicit public comment, either from the audience or on the live stream. Okay, seeing none, do any members of the agency have any questions or comments on the budget? Right. So at this time, I would entertain a motion. Excuse me, yes. Oh, I have to close the hearing. Sorry. Closing the public hearing and I found the gavel. At this time, I would take a motion on the budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 fiscal year budget.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Stacy.
Stacy? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Now, let's see. So we have one action item tonight, the consideration and approval of the Urban Renewal Incentive Program. Yes.
Okay, so,
So
they need to officially approve the resolution.
not just the motion for,
We just moved to adopt it.
I know, but the resolution requires a separate.
Okay,
okay. Okay, so we're learning that the resolution requires a second motion.
so Chair, one way you can do that is to move to resolution 22-21, no, excuse me, it should be 22-001. And then it would be a resolution, you could just read the title. That's how you can make your motion.
That is on page 11 of the packet. If someone would like to make that motion.
Would you entertain a motion?
Yes, I would.
I would move to adopt the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget for the Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency, making allocations and certifying a request for the maximum tax revenue to the county assessor, also known as resolution number 22-001.
Actually, 21.
Is it 21-001?
It's 22.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Stacy.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Now we'll move on to the action item with the renewal incentive program. Dr. Cannon?
Thank you. This is a project we've been working on for quite a few months. And as you know, I had the assistance of a consultant, Deb Myhoff, who isn't with us tonight, but she certainly did a lot of the background research and really appreciated her help. We discussed it at the January 18th meeting and the March 15th meeting. And I have excerpts of those minutes from that discussion for reference. This is a brand new, it's an updated incentive program. And our intent behind this is to get resources out to potential developers quickly so that they can invest in our urban renewal area and help us get some return on investment for all that we've done over 30 years in the urban renewal area. So looking forward to seeing all the fruits of this program come to life on the ground. And I really do think I can think of 9 folks who are interested in investing in our downtown in the next 2 years. It's very exciting. So I'm going to just briefly describe what's included in the incentive program. We're focusing on grants and taking away focus off of loans. So there are no loan options as part of this. The first category of grant is a commercial project grant, and that would be for building upgrades, tenant improvements, and similar types of rehab for commercial projects. It would be a 50% match up to $50,000. And that's provided it meets the goals. The next category is mixed use projects, matching funds to fund transformational mixed use redevelopment and investment in underused or vacant properties. 70% match provided by the Urban Renewal Agency and 30% provided by the private sector. And the last category is new residential project grants. And this is a subsidy for SDC payments for each new net dwelling unit in the project. And that would be up to $10,000 per unit. There is no limit on this number of units. However, I'll be talking about some of the caveats or the limitations in the program below, but those are the 3 categories of grants. I'll talk about some of the program details and restrictions here now. The funding limit that was established here after some discussion was that the incentive program funds may be combined with other public programs, provided, however, that no project may receive greater than $700,000 total in funding from both the City of the Dalles and the agency, or abatements from the City of the Dalles or the agency. Funds from any other agency program may not be used to satisfy the fund matching requirements for commercial project and mixed use project grants. So a $700,000 cap. Match required for commercial project and mixed use projects. On some of them, as I mentioned earlier, it's a 50% match, and then on another category, it's 30% match. So we did add this at the request of, we have at least one big project that's proposed to come into our district that is going to be a high impact project, high impact in a positive way. And so we've added the ability on a case-by-case basis to come in and ask for more than the funding cap, provided at the discretion of the agency board. Applications for a mixed use project with more than 50 dwelling units may be eligible for funding exceeding the grant cap of $150,000. I think we meant to say $700,000, so that should say $700,000 there. The agency's board discretion on such eligibility shall be based on the degree the proposed mixed-use project will meet multiple funding priorities as outlined in the plan and herein. So really, this is a case-by-case basis where we would get the request. We're already talking about what the negotiation process might look like internally, where we would enter discussions with developers who are interested in exceeding the cap. And so I'll come back to you more, but we may get one or more of these requests, and this allowance will, you have to approve this as on a case-by-case basis. This is a reimbursement basis grant that we will reimburse costs after the grant is awarded. We have a few ineligible improvements. Primarily, this grant is intended to fund permanent and physical improvements or design and engineering leading to permanent and physical improvements. So things like cleaning and maintenance, property acquisition, financing costs, or debt, or other operating costs are prohibited. Then we have a 15-year restriction on property tax abatements or credits. And the intention there is except for developments that are abated or subsidized by the Dalles Vertical Housing Zone, projects pursuing or otherwise subject to abatements are ineligible for the incentive program, including projects pursuing low-income housing tax credits or abatements tied to nonprofit status of users. For all other types of development. Any properties receiving incentive program funding are restricted from receiving abatements for 15 years after grant funds are dispersed. So we talk about some more details attached to that, but those are some limitations. And we talked about that at length at this meeting, I think on a couple of different occasions. That concludes. I can answer any detailed questions you might have on some of these limitations. We have a description of the program that's about 4 pages, which is Exhibit A or Attachment A. So feel free to ask any questions you might have. Really pleased about the discussion and the good work that you've done here to develop this program. I'm happy to make any adjustments tonight. And our goal would be to try to get it adopted this month or at the very latest next month, because we have folks who are ready to invest in our urban renewal area. So with that, I will offer the staff recommendation that you move to approve the 2022 Urban Renewal Incentive Program update and direct staff to give regular updates on program outcomes at upcoming urban renewal advisory board meetings. And the only caveat, the only change I would make would be making sure that on page 13 of the packet, where there's a list under the additional funding eligibility, that we swap out the 150,000 and make that change to 700,000. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments, thoughts?
Please.
I'm new to this board, so kind of coming in, maybe some of this had already been discussed, but sounds like a really big revamp of a program 30 years ago, right? I mean, the 90s is when this was last done. Huge change and really a great opportunity to shape our downtown. What's it going to look like in the future? You know, and this program will help with that. Does the board and does the agency feel like past recipients of these funds have been good stewards of the funds? And if not, what were there changes made to hopefully not repeat potential? Hindsight's always 20/20, right? Things that you don't realize until after the fact.
I wasn't here, but I will say from what I've observed, the grant program that we had some pretty tight limits on it for grants. There were small numbers like 5,000, 10,000. It wasn't very much that was offered, one. And some of that was for design work, so that didn't result in investment. We did have a facade improvement program, but it was smaller program, so it didn't leverage as much change. The other thing that was different is we had a program that offered, that's been used on the Hunnell building and the Gayer building and a few others. That's a loan program where we pay the interest, they pay the principal. So it's a little bit of a shared arrangement there. And then we've also loaned to the Commodore building, and we sold property to Mr. Zilka, the blue building, and have a loan for that. So there have been different arrangements on a case-by-case basis, but this is a complete overhaul and really focused on grants. So I think those examples where we've given loans, I think those have been good examples that I can point to that were higher levels of investment that resulted in good change, positive change for our downtown.
Yeah, and I would just comment that I think that this revised incentive program that staff brought forward and that we revised as a board really reflects our changed priorities and also the visioning information that we took in and some other changes that have happened at the city level. And we're really trying to mesh all of those. And I also think that this board is taking a little bit quicker action than in the past. I think we're all ready to have some major changes that are really visible to the public. And that's just a shift in perspective. So it's kind of apples to yeah. So I would say as long as we're all happy with the incentives and think it's going to take us where we need to be, then this is a good package. I personally think that. Feedback from the board.
My only question, and this is my feedback from previous meetings, was just the amount and just making sure there's an equal distribution amongst a number of applicants. And so I know there's a $2 million cap on the overall budget for this year. And then knowing that there's a $700,000 cap for some of the applicants, is there a way to even make sure that distribution, maybe they don't get it all in the first year, maybe there's, you could still have that $700,000, but just making sure that all the applicants could potentially get a piece of the pie for this year. That's the only thing that gives me like hesitation, but I'm excited about the overall program. I just want to make sure that some of the smaller fish, as well as the big, that there's some sort of, there's not as big of a gap necessarily in that. So I shared that before.
We budgeted generously this year. I did an estimate on how much we might give out in grants, and I bumped it up from, I think it was 150,000 to 2 million. So I don't know if we'll make it to 2 million this year, but we have it there if we need to. And I feel completely comfortable if we're doing a good job and being good stewards of this money, and you're awarding good grants are going to result in some good positive change. We can do a supplemental budget. We can just come back. The funds will run out at some point, but we'll come back and talk about it at that time. So I feel pretty good that we'll be in a good position to fund whatever comes in the door sooner than later.
Excellent question. Kathy, do you have any questions or comments?
Me?
Yep.
Oh,
Yes,
yes,
of course.
How did you know, Darcy?
I don't know.
I just had a process question. So going forward, and I guess for those, I am a new member of this board, but I was on it, I don't know how many years ago, 5 years ago, maybe, for a short period of time. So I have a little bit of old history and now some new history. But going forward, Alice, would each of these grants come to the board for a decision, or is it something that staff is going to look at and decide on these grants? And the reason I ask that is because it's just always difficult for a large board when you have folks coming in, asking for money, and it's just difficult to say no at times. This doesn't quite meet the project, and what we don't want to do, I think, is get really stalled with, some of us liking this project, some of us don't. I don't know. I'm just curious the process going forward.
That's an excellent question. We batted it around at the staff level a bit. Proposed originally was to give me authority to approve grants at 25,000 and under. We decided at the staff level, and I didn't mention that in my presentation. Thanks for the question. This is helpful. To bump that up to 50,000, so that the authority, you would give me a granting authority of up to 50,000, and anything over 50,000 would come to the board for approval. No matter what, I'll take whatever direction you give as consensus or a motion. If you want to change that number lower or higher, but I would suggest we don't go any higher than 50, but I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. But if you want to go lower, that's fine. I will promise to give you a recommendation no matter what. So you'll get a staff recommendation from us about whether we think it meets the criteria or not. And that kind of puts the burden on me and the staff to give you that recommendation, and you can decide if you agree with it or not. But we're used to that. That's what we do for Planning Commission all the time. So different decisions. So does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. And I know, Stacy, you've been around a long time as well. Is Stacy in the room? I think I see her. Hi. Yeah, I just, just have memories of folks coming in, emotionally appealing, and, and every project is a good project. So it's just really hard for a large board, to make those decisions. And I guess process wise, would you see folks coming in to talk to us and then you giving a recommendation, or will this just all come through staff and you're meeting with the potential grantees, right? Grantees, yeah.
How we're envisioning the process is that someone will turn in an application package, and we hope it'll be complete. If it's not complete, we'll send it back for more information. And then once we have a complete application, we want to review it within 30 days. And either if it's at a staff level, we can award it or not. And we'll make that decision. If it needs to go to the board, we'll have it come to the board within the month. So it'll be a 60-day turnaround. That's our hope. on all the applications, but they wouldn't come to the board first. They would come to staff first. They would put everything in writing, submit their plans, and then we would work with the applicant until it's ready to come to the board level or be may have a decision made at the staff level.
Okay, thank you. I think you know where I'm going with that.
Think so?
Yeah, it's just difficult, you know, for the large board to deal directly with the grantee at the very basic presentation level. So that was my experience. So.
Kind of piggybacking on that, you had mentioned like scoring these grant requests. Will there be like a formal process that you're scoring with that would be applied to both the small grants and the large grants?
We are in the process of developing our application. We hope to have something out next week, but I didn't include that in the package because it wasn't ready. That's the truth. But yes, we want to have some sort of a process that would be, I don't know, it's unlikely to be necessary to score. It needs, what we've said in the criteria is it needs to meet one or more of the priorities that you've established for the year. And those are listed on page 16 of the packet, or those are the eligible. There is an annual process. Let me find the funding priorities. Those are listed on page 15, right at the beginning of that attachment. Increasing property values, placing unused or underused properties in productive condition, assisting with opportunities for business, civic, residential, cultural, and tourist-related property to be developed, redeveloped, improved, rehabbed, and conserved. And then lastly, supporting development or redevelopment to construct, install, or replace publicly owned utility systems such as water, storm drains, sanitary sewers, and so forth.
Pretty broad.
Yeah.
And really, so then if anything comes in that meets one of those criteria, it could potentially then be awarded money.
Right. It's probably more of a binary decision as opposed to a scoring. It either meets it or it doesn't, or it provides enough detail or it doesn't. That's why I think time, people first come, first served, really, if this ends up being a popular program.
I had a question too. It seems like, so there's 9 folks who are already potentially interested, it sounds like, right? And 10 folks that were property owners that were involved in the public piece of it. How were those folks found?
I just knew that they were interested in developing in our downtown. Okay. And then at least two were brokers. So we shared information with investors and property owners, and then also brokers who are commercial brokers.
You kind of knew about like, will there be a process that will be advertised or rolled out to like the broader community? So folks who weren't in the know right now would have an opportunity to participate too? Yes,
and we need to do a better job than we've done. So I think getting information out on Facebook, on all the social media opportunities we have, but also getting a newspaper, seeing if the newspaper would cover it. We also want to have a strong presence on our website, and we don't have that today. So we have a new website, new city website, which is quite nice. We'll create a special project page for this where people can get more information. And I'd like to highlight recent successes that we've had so people will get an idea of what we're looking for, what defines success.
If I might. Director Cannon, I think one of the challenges, as I recall in the past, and maybe it doesn't quite fit in this situation, but in my prior life, I think, observation of completion of a project was certainly paramount to making sure that the project was completed as we all expected. And I think perhaps that wasn't as clear as we might have liked it to be. Is there room in here, or would it be appropriate? I mean, obviously, if we're building a brand new building and it gains ability to have folks move in, then I guess that means it's completed. But I think in some of those other smaller projects where things might not be so obvious when they're completed, does this allow for us to, or you or staff, to go in and observe that the project is in fact as they said it was, and it was fully completed, and whether it's occupancy or whatever the trigger is that allows for payment, that is agreed upon prior to
Great question. There will be a grant agreement. I've been talking to the city attorney about this. There will be a grant agreement attached with each grant, and we'll want to have some provisions in there that allow us to, prior to finalizing final payment or whatever it is, that we have all of our milestones met.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, I think that's fair. I think it's kind of, it's normal or somewhat
Mhm.
normal. And so I just hate to have hard feelings when, it's not that we don't trust anybody. It's just, this isn't our money. And so we want to make sure that we're safeguarding it and taking as best care to share it with folks and that the projects are actually completed. So it meets the success of what we've listed on our bullet points. I think that seems important.
It's very
So,
good. And it's
agreed.
something we aspire to do. We try to do a good job of it. We don't always meet the mark, but if we're like development applications, we have conditions of approval. We
Right.
go and inspect and make sure that those conditions are met before they are able to open, for
Right.
instance.
The only other question I had, and I think it's kind of been slightly alluded to here, is, certainly some folks are aware of some of these changes, but I think there's a lot of folks otherwise in the community that may not be aware of those. And I just want to make sure that we, I can see where, hopefully the good problem is we run out of money. I mean, I think that's a good problem to have, but I just want to make sure we find a way to make sure it's available, particularly for those folks who may not have been
Mhm.
in the know in the first round of knowledge and information, and that we find a way to make sure we share that with the broader community so that it's a fair start for everybody, at least here.
Very good. Thank you.
So since we're trying to make the very best program possible, and I know we have some developers in the audience, I want to go ahead and open it up to public comment right now. If anyone has something to say, you need to identify yourself with your name and address, and I'll give you up to 5 minutes. Any comments?
No one's going. I will. Todd Carpenter, 2160 East 5th Street. Hi, Paula. I'm super proud that you guys are even considering this. I think this board is going in this, what you guys call a board. I think Director Cannon has done a great job putting this thing together. I think it's very progressive. I think you're going to see a lot of change downtown, a lot of excitement around it, and really build this up. It's really going to kickstart things. I mean, we got the grant from the state for $200,000 for the face of, those 3 buildings, and we use most of it on the 2 buildings. But that's going to be 3 projects that you guys, this urban renewal really had a big hand in, and I think it's going to be great. And I think you're going to see a lot of positive change. There's a lot of upstairs residential units in town. That's exciting for the community, and I'm just proud that you guys are even considering it. So good job. I'm looking forward to everything you guys do in the next few years, and very excited about it. There's a lot of good developers in town that are ready to, to do a lot of stuff, I think. So thank you. I'm in support, by the way.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't know if this is the right time for me to ask a quick question, just for clarity's sake for me. It's my second day on the job, so I'm still new.
I'm sorry, you need to identify yourself.
Were the SDCs broadly, including Parks and Rec SDCs and city? Just thought of that question.
So Chair, the question from the audience was whether the SDCs included all SDCs, including those outside the city, like the Parks and Recreation. The answer is yes.
Anyone else?
Chair Long, I have a couple if I could, when it's appropriate. Dunialis, thank you. Director Cannon, I should say. So there's essentially 3 flavors of grants here, the commercial, the mixed use, and the new residential. Clarify for me, and I feel I read this, but now I'm not saying it. If one is building a mixed use project, one either applies for the mixed use grant or the SDCs, or can those be stacked?
Chair and Board Member Richardson, the answer to that is you could potentially get all 3, depending on the mixture of uses that you have. So for instance, I'm going to use Mr. Carpenter as an example. So Mr. Carpenter, let's use the last stop. he might want to get a grant for the commercial portion of his building and to rehab something on the commercial part. And so he could qualify for a grant that would be the commercial, the 50% up to 50,000. And then for mixed use, because he might, I've been told, he might have a residential component upstairs in that building. He could qualify for things like elevators, things that are going to contribute to that add cost to a mixed use project. So he could qualify for that. If it's a hotel room or something like that, it's more commercial oriented, then he would just get the commercial in the mixed use grant. But if he adds dwelling units, then he would get the subsidy attached to the system development charges for that.
And are the grants available per parcel or per project or per person, developer?
Per project.
Project. I think that's all I had. I had one other, but it was, I think, already answered. I would reiterate two comments that have been said. One is that I hope that you reach out to the newspapers. We just have the two that cover on a regular basis, and feel that that would be an appropriate and useful means of getting word out widely to the community. Usually Facebook draws off of published material, or often it does anyway. And the other is just that, yes, I would like to see or would like to hear the discussion about what the triggers are for making final payments on projects or the reimbursement. What are the thresholds or the triggers? I'm not sure what term you're going to use, but how do we know when we're ready to pay so that we don't spend money on a project that runs out of money or gets half built or
Very good.
that sort of thing?
So kind of those milestone payments of like a.
We want to be funding finished projects
Yes.
that get over the finish line.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can come back. I'll work out those details with our city attorney, and I can come back next month as soon as possible on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, so since this is an action item, someone like to make a motion?
I will.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, let's see. I'll move to approve the 2022 Urban Renewal Incentive Program update and to direct staff to give regular updates on program outcomes at upcoming URAB meetings.
There's a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Dan Richards. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Yes.
I didn't vote, but I think I wasn't going to vote on this, so just abstain.
Oh, yes.
Just put me down as abstain, just since
Lindsay.
I didn't vote, but I just want to abstain just because of the nature of us being building owners downtown. So don't put a vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. You did tell me. All right, so next we have something fun. We have a discussion item. We just get to hear about one of the projects that might be coming downtown.
Yeah, Chair Long and members of the board, thank you. It was Counselor and Board Member Richardson who last meeting said, well, you keep telling us about all these developers who are interested in downtown. Well, why don't you bring one forward who has a concept? So I know Tony Zilka, we sold, it was an agency-owned building at the southwest corner of First and Washington, known as the Blue Building, but it's actually a gray building in any event. So he is very interested in redeveloping that site soon and has a concept that he's been working on for a few months and sharing with staff. And I thought he would be totally enthusiastic about sharing it with all of you. And I was right. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tony and his partner, Keith Temple.
Mr. Zelka, you're muted.
Are you muted, Tony? Somebody's muted. Maybe it's me.
Mr. Zelka, you're muted. We can't hear.
Got
Thank you.
it. Sorry.
Tony Zilka, owner of First and Washington Street building, also Zilka Construction. Keith and I have been working.
Excuse me. I'm so sorry. I need your address, Mr. Zilka.
Say again?
I need your
Oh, my
address.
sorry, 205 Washington.
Thank you.
So Keith and I have been working on this project, and we're pretty excited about what the 205 building will bring to the Dalles. I come up with some experience in construction, 30 years experience in construction. My company is moving part of its company up here, and we've been doing other projects in the Dalles and Hood River and White Salmon and Bingen. My brothers have also moved up here. My brother Johnny has Shannon's Ice Cream. My brother Paul bought a house up here. So we're investing in being in the Dalles. This building is pretty exciting. We feel it's a cornerstone project, 160-year-old building, one of the oldest. There's a representation of it in the. Can you see me all right? Yeah, there we go. In the Wasco County Museum. So we're pretty excited about getting this project going. So we have a presentation for this. Keith is going to kick it off. And deliver our vision. Can you hear me?
You have the wrong screen on there, but whenever you're ready to.
What have we got up at the moment? Sorry, we're having some technical issues here, needless to say.
We have emails up there right now or text messages. But you did have the right screen.
I did
a minute
have the
ago.
right screen.
There you go. That's correct.
Okay. Right, let's jump into that. Okay. So we should have a picture of a large, what was blue but is now brown building. Just to give, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Good, okay. So just to give a quick introduction to myself, my name is Keith Temple. I am a development strategist. Tony and I have worked together on a number of projects over the last few years. But we would like to take you through our development strategy for 205 Washington. So let us move with some alacrity so you can all enjoy your evenings, etc. Okay, so just to give us a bit of an X marks the spot or red dot marks the spot, as you can see, the property is tight into downtown, close to the park, close to the waterfront, and it's in a pretty desirable spot. So to run through just some of the background, we do tend to work very much on a research-based approach. And before driving at the development strategy, we obviously looked at a number of avenues of research, and the real thing was to clarify who the stakeholders were. Once we had that, then we can actually figure out, okay, well, what are the criteria and how are we going to satisfy them? Once we've done that, then we're on a path to victory, famous last words. Okay, these are our primary stakeholders that we have had interaction with. Obviously, Alice and Josh Chandler, Lisa Farquharson at Chamber of Commerce, Greg Price, who's been really generous with his time. We've got another meeting with him tomorrow. Historic Landmarks Commission, Tony's obviously had ongoing chats with them, and local businesses, some of whom are represented here this evening. Granada, Last Stop, Baldwin and the Hub. We also had fairly involved conversations with commercial and residential realtors and developers in the area, and that really helped us a lot. We supplemented this with online research, really to test any assumptions that we had, but also to check the data that we had. And while we were doing the online part, that was one of the easiest ways we could actually get an idea on the building itself. And so the history of the building we dug into fairly deeply. I enjoyed that personally a great deal. And so those were the main building blocks, if you like, of our research program. However, the one that was really important was we came across initially the community vision for downtown the Dalles, which was commissioned in 2019. And we studied that, watched the presentation, and then as time moved forward, we were then able to participate in the Dalles Vision 2040. Both Tony and I attended the town hall meeting on that and took part in the workshops and got some really interesting background. I think that one of the other things I would throw in here was Tony has been, as he mentioned, back and forth to Dallas a great deal of late and spends a lot of time out there. And I think that's given us a really good grounding on speaking to local people, checking our assumptions with them, but also getting a feel much more for the community. Question, did anybody want my address? I can give you it if you want it.
Yes, please.
Okay, it is 2546 Northeast 17th, which is Portland, 97212.
Thank you.
Welcome. Sorry for not giving it earlier. So with all that research having taken place, we started to analyze what we had. And what was interesting was, despite the fact we had agencies with a lot of different remits and focus, there were a lot of common goals and a lot of common concerns. And that was along with the individual ideas. So what we did, we took that and then added in the community input, and that's when the common themes started to emerge. So this was our overarching view, if you like, almost our mission statement. And everything that we came up with, we tested against this statement to ensure that we were actually still on track. Moving forward, so here is some of the feedback that we got. This neighborhood should attract and retain local people and visitors. So the question is how? Simple answer, you give them a greater option of shopping, gathering, eating, drinking, all at the same time while enjoying and absorbing the uniqueness of the district itself. So again, this was mentioned in two of the studies, the two community studies. In order to attract local people, we need a greater selection of retail food options. That would also apply to visitors. So this is not just eat in, but it would be takeout, ethnic, grocers, delicatessens, food carts, whatever. Come up in both studies. And again, through Tony's coffee shop research, we've been testing a lot of these with local people and we get very positive feedback. Moving on to a more cultural question. The community is particularly proud of the history and the multicultural genesis, if you like, of the city. That's also supplemented, however, with a real strong tradition in hard work, agricultural community and commerce. And of course, right in the middle of some beautiful countryside. So very, very, very strong pride that we wanted to echo. A big thing that came up in both studies, residents love to eat, meet, drink, gather, socialize outdoors. And particularly they're drawn to family-focused events. So things like music or art or sports or culinary experience rank very, very highly on that. Hospitality-related businesses, we are told, should be open for a greater range of hours. That, if applied correctly, creates a prolonged energy in the district through the day, the evening, and into the night. Interestingly, this also is borne out in the desire to attract people downtown at the weekend. So we're going from on an hour-by-hour basis, we need to sustain that vibrancy, but we now have to push it into the weekend to bring people downtown to revitalize that center.
Mr. Temple.
See.
This is Chair Long. I'm afraid you might run out of time to explain the actual project, which we're all anxious to hear. You might want to save the methodology for when you come before us to ask for the grant.
Okay. Well, let me do this, and I shall jump forward in that case. Boom, boom, boom. Okay.
We're just excited to hear about your project.
Yeah, my it's been a rot day. Let me put it that way. I'll go past approach. I'll give you the very quick version of the approach. We're using in this case what would be termed as, if I can jump to my share screen, we're using what's termed experience design. So normally when you look at a proposal, occasionally on this type of project, what you're seeing is an architectural plan, which shows how the building is going to be split up and used. What we've done is to take a step before that, where by looking at experience design, we're illustrating how the building will actually impact the district, the people, the commerce, and the residents of the project. And so that's where we've gone with this. So let me, having jumped forward to the picture side of it, we can focus on this. So here we have, as you'll probably recognize it from our early shot, we have our frontage of the building as it stands currently. So that's as it stands now. What is it that we actually want to do? This, essentially. This is something that we have focused on, and the analysis, which we can skip past, has fed into. The idea is to deliver a comprehensive and considered design where people can live and work, gather, eat, drink, all within the building and its immediate surroundings. So in essence, we're actually creating a mini neighborhood within that space, within that environment. Looking at some of the following impacts we believe the project will deliver, residential is one, hospitality is another, community is another, and we shall start off on retail. Right there. Okay. So we are in a very fortunate space. We have a ground floor streetscape where it's a sunny southeast aspect. It has a 12-foot deep sidewalk, which apparently is going to be renewed at some point, but one of the less busy ends of Washington. The great part of this facade is that if we actually utilize it properly, it will present the public face as vibrant, fresh, and contributing to revitalization of the historic district. That is really our starting point. In order to do this, what we were proposing to do is to illustrate the commercial potential by defining how the businesses can support each other. And in order to do that, we've actually given working titles. So the idea on an experience design front is to create energy and presence. And we do that by creating fast turnaround businesses. So working from left to right on the drawing in front of you, the first building, as you see, deli it says, somebody walking a dog past there, that really answers this question of the locals' need for different food options and for visitors alike. And so we're proposing something which would be seen probably as the Washington Street Deli. It would be not necessarily somewhere you'd go in for your weekly shop. It's more of an idea of running in, grabbing a nice sandwich or picking up some bread or getting some cheese, good sort of deli style stuff. The upside of it is we can also mix local goods and produce with that. And that's, we feel, would be an ideal way of bringing in some of the visitors as well. Next door to that, we have this frontage, which certainly I've enjoyed when I've been down there and sitting outside with Tony. We would propose to put shaded seating across the front portion of the facade and really take advantage of that open, sunny aspect. Directly opposite the building, there are trees, there's a parking lot, which is generally not that busy. but we would see this business as being key to developing that neighborhood community. There are other coffee shops in the area, fully understand that. This is a more experience-driven, looking at a more relaxed hangout than grab and go. And so if we were to take this and open it at 6 o'clock, that would actually give us a nice starting point to the day. And as we know, people are kind of habitual in the mornings. Next to that, this is an interesting space. We're considering putting in 3 to 4 very small units, and this is to reflect the region's increase in owner-operated businesses. We would like ideally to find those which would appeal to locals and to visitors, tourists as well. These would be smaller standalone units where people could actually make their products but sell them. So it might be somebody who's, for example, a traditional leather worker, or they're making custom bike wheels, or they're making dried fruit energy bars. So things that you wouldn't necessarily expect to have a big frontage, but things which could also thrive online. We would expect one of the ways that we could actually increase foot traffic into that, we've discussed, is actually putting an additional entrance through the coffee shop itself, so that people would have a chance to go in and then mix and mingle and go through. The long and short of it is that the composite effect of the building, retail components, creates this highly visible active streetscape, which wouldn't just capture the energy, but would actually project the energy necessary in revitalizing the downtown experience, if you like. Okay, so residential. So when we're working on development strategy, essentially you look for fixed points. In this case, as is the case with most existing buildings, we have the location of the property itself. So here we have a relatively unique lifestyle. We have a tied-in downtown, vibrant, walkable downtown district, but we have views uninterrupted of the area's countryside, which is accessible in minutes. Our proposition is this: we are looking to put in either 8 or 12 single bedroom apartments. The breakdown of 8 or 12 is as follows. If we are going by existing zoning regulations, then the top floor would be the only one that we could actually put residential properties in. If, however, it was granted that we could do some residential on the ground floor, retail at the front on the ground floor is at the street level. At the back, because of the nature of the building, the ground floor rather becomes in effect the second floor. So if that were to change, we would put in 12 apartments in total. These apartments are modern loft style. They would be small. They're going to be around about 400 square feet. However, we have high ceilings in there and we have lots of light. And we're looking to put something in which is airy and open and modern, low maintenance. And again, with the loft style, it ties in with the building's brick built construction and its established commercial history. We would see a low cost of ownership. We haven't actually worked out full costs, but these would not be expensive apartments. A couple could live in them, 2 people could live in them, but really we're looking at individuals. We feel that small scale would certainly reduce the cost of ownership, but we also want to make the maintenance of those properties low. Very few people when they're starting out now want to have the bother of cutting grass and mowing, doing hedge trimming and creosoting fences and all those good things that mature homeowners have to deal with, unfortunately. So low maintenance and high efficiency and energy. We have thick walls. We have some very, very good advanced glazing systems which can fulfill both the historic side of things and the environmental side of things. The other interesting element, I think, is that we would look to make these as live-work space. Oregon is one of the highest ranked states for work from home. I think Bend is actually the highest conurbation in the country for work from home. So we would want these spaces to be work from home friendly, but also digitally robust. So as more and more strains are put on bandwidth, then we would be able to fulfill those and people wouldn't be boxed into a corner. The cherry on the cake for these we discussed, and we are very interested in putting a communal roof terrace on the property. One, to take advantage of the flat roof. Two, to take advantage of the fact that you've got uninterrupted views out over to Washington, across the river. And even the railway, the railroad and the freeway have a certain kind of urban grip, which I think adds to the whole mix. The other part of this, which I think is interesting, is that if you do this properly, actually having that roof development done properly with trees and lights and all those things, it would actually communicate not just to the Dalles community, but also freeway travelers that there are things going on in the downtown district. So, sorry, my voice is definitely going. Excuse me. Okay, so let's look on the rear of the building, what's going on behind the scenes. So we have two people to thank for this. One is Todd, who allowed Tony to go up on his building on the roof to take this shot. Tony for taking the shot. I directed it remotely, so everybody was in on it, and I think we did quite an interesting job. As you can see, the notes that I actually had on this initially were, when Tony sent it through to me, I tagged it as Tony's battle-scarred backside, which is probably not the best thing to focus on, but you get an idea of the state of the building as it is at the moment. Here's what we want to do to it. So the most differentiating feature of the building at the back is its ground level basement, which runs the full length of the property's, do my calculations here, northwest face. As we touched on, the basement survived fires when the model laundry burnt the place down. It's survived floods when the Columbia burst its bank, but the timbers, the beams, the supports are probably one of the oldest surviving constructions in the Dalles. Currently, there is no access to that other than from within. The building, that historic aspect of the building has been hidden away for decades, but we propose to change that. Moving into hospitality. Welcome to the Dalles Cider Vault. So the idea behind this is to open the basement to the rear. And in doing so, we have the potential to create something very special for the local community and for the visitors. The Dalles Cider Vault, if you want to be cheeky, biggest selection of ciders in the gorge. I'm sure we can say that with a straight face if we fill those taps. The interior of the property, as you can see by this rather well-hewn lump of bleached wood, can remain untouched, preserving the building's historic validity, while also echoing the Dalles ethos of grit and hard work. One of the things that drove this decision was looking at the rationale. Both culinary experience and historic sightseeing rank extremely highly, according to Travel Oregon, as reasons for visiting the gorge. I think culinary experience is 57%. That also encourages breweries, et cetera, and I think the historic sightseeing is around 51 or 52%. So these market sectors have seen really steady growth over the last 15 years, and that's something that we want to tap into. The other part of this is that we're now serving the local market and the visitors, the tourists, with something fresh and unique. And not only is it exposing this historic part of the Dalles, but it also allows the people, the visitors and the locals to support the area's producers, which we felt was tied back into that idea of small local businesses rather than large chains. It would also be extremely well placed for the visitors and for the cruise liners docking relatively close by. Lisa Farquharson talked to me at length about the benefit of having unique regional experiences. This would be one of those, and I think could actually fly quite nicely. To further differentiate the cider vault, one of the things we talked about with Greg Price, and he may be looking for optional venue for this. The idea would be to produce a short run, small batch facility. This would allow local producers to test out new recipes, seasonal flavors, without disrupting their main production line, which is bringing revenue into them. The other upside is, of course, that it then gives them instant access to their enthusiastic focus groups. So, moving ever forward, this is our final section. The community. Our plan is to, if possible, extend the rear lot, where we have around about 25 feet, I believe, to closer to 60. The reason for us doing this is it actually gives us a really strong ability to introduce some exciting initiatives. The main reason is that if you look at what we're proposing to do to the front of the building to create that vibrancy and that energy, we would be remiss if we didn't apply that to the rear of the building as well. And for that reason, we actually need to serve the community. Rather than just saying, okay, we're going to put a few outdoor tables for the Cider Vault's patrons, we would actually dedicate that rear area to the outdoor gathering, the meeting, etc., and creating a sheltered space where people could actually meet and gather. They don't have to go to drink in the Cider Vault. They're more than welcome. They can go and drink at Todd's place. It's a very open communal space. So the other thing that we push is, if on Washington we have a coffee shop opening at 6 and serving through the day, and the deli as well into the evening, by extending our hours in the Cider Vault, we actually create from 6 till midnight, probably, or 11 through the week. We create that period where the business is operational, but also the business in which time it can actually positively energize the downtown. Looking at things on a larger scale, more on a district scale, we're pushing very strongly, as I'm sure you've picked up, on community-focused uses. How is this thing going to serve the community? How is it going to help people want to come downtown and enjoy themselves? And so we would see the businesses between Todd's and Chuck's and Tony's as providing a hub, if you like, second in Washington Corner, as a center for socialized entertainment in the downtown district. The other upside of this is that these existing investments that the city's already made in Granada and in the last stop, we believe will help realize those effectively. There is definitely some synergy, I think, between the businesses. And that's the thing that I would really like to focus on before we close. We believe that the three businesses could work together really well, and in doing so could enhance the combined location and, of course, the customer experience. So an example might be Todd's open air section running from 2nd through to the back of his property would mesh perfectly with our proposed outdoor space, while allowing an easy flow of customers between the businesses without even using surface streets. And then on a more family-focused level, we'd also be happy and very excited to work with Chuck. He's talked about in the past creating events, outdoor screening of movies, etc., to the rear of his building. And we believe that that would be a really great gathering point for family and friends in a run up to the weekend. So that is the back half, the meat and potatoes of the presentation. I would like to thank you for taking time to listen to us, and I would hand back to Tony to take us over the finish line.
So very, very briefly, Mr. Zilka, because we gave you 15 minutes for the presentation and I'd let you guys go more than 30. So maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really, thanks for spending the time and giving us the time to look at a project that we're pretty passionate about. Keith has worked pretty hard on it. And I'm looking forward to getting this off the ground and getting it going. And that's what we've got.
Chair,
Yep.
you might have picked up on the fact that I think they would like to extend their property out onto property that we own, we own 3 lots that sit to the west of the blue building property that is currently serving as a kind of a paved parking lot. And that may be on the table of figuring out the conveyance of that property. So that's part of the request. That isn't something we're going to talk about more tonight, but you saw the extension out into that outdoor space.
He's asked a couple of times and Urban Renewal had decided not to get rid of any of our parking lots. Not for parking, so we've already told Mr. Zilka twice no on extending out.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions or any comments before we close for the night? Okay. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Night.